ॐ परतत्त्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying Swami Vivekananda's Rajoga, and in the preface we found that Swamiji is talking about the extraordinary phenomena, and there are two views about it. The so-called scientists, surface scientists, deny them totally, and the superstitious or fraudulent or ignorant people ascribe it to some beings. But Swamiji says that there is nothing extraordinary. As we see the gross world, there is a subtle world behind it. Subtle reality, subtle existences, subtle power behind the gross. And these phenomena have been studied for thousands of years in India and generalized, and the textbook is Patanjali's Rajoga. And this is a textbook. And then Patanjali's system is based upon Sankhya. That is what Swamiji is telling us. And Sankhya, in short, believes that there is no permanent God. But one of the souls like us, when about to get freedom, comes to a very high state, and a desire comes in him, unselfish desire, that I should do good to humanity. So he becomes merged. We have this Prakriti, this part of the Prakriti with us, but he merges in the whole Prakriti. So the powers of the whole Prakriti become his powers. So in the next cycle, he is given the charge of governing this world. Given means he gets that charge. There is nobody to give him. He gets that charge. And they call it Kalpa Niyamak Ishwar. That is one side. Secondly, there is Prakriti, the whole, and nature, which is Jada. And conscious, there are Purushas, plural, infinite number of Purushas. That is the Sankhya system in short. Now the Patanjali Yoga system differs a little. They believe in a God who is the first teacher. Teacher, because without teacher knowledge cannot come. Then the question arises, who got first? The previous teacher, from where he got, from where he got. So a teacher, Kalena Anavachchedat. Have you written that? I have given the definition. That Klesha Karma, you have written that perhaps, na? Klesha Karma Vipaka Ashayir Aparamrushta Purusha Vishesha Ishvara. Okay? उसके बाद स पूर्वेशाम अपि गुरु कालेन अनवच्छेदात्. स पूर्वेशाम अपि गुरु कालेन अनवच्छेदात्. Because time has no effect on him. So he is the guru of all the old gurus also. Because time has no effect on him, so he is the guru of all previous gurus. Later on, if we study Patanjali's system, we studied it sometime, they have seen that there are bhaktas, and by surrendering everything to God, they get samadhi also. So they have mentioned it without trying to fathom that their idea of God is different from your idea of God. Understood? When we think God to be the creator, preserver and destroyer of the world, when we think God is the sum total of all the souls, then surrender to God gets a meaning. But they do not believe in such a God. Their God is only one special Purusha. So that is Patanjali. And the second point Swamiji mentioned was that Sankhya's believe that the mind is individual, while the yogis believe that mind is also universal. Just like soul is universal, mind is also universal. Okay, this difference only shows. Then, and he has mentioned that other philosophers differ from them. That means Vedanta is different from this Sankhya or Yoga system. In Vedanta, there is one permanent God. He is both Saguna and Nirguna. He is the sum total of all souls. And all souls are nothing but his reflections. That is the Vedanta. Now, then we came to introduction. And in introduction, Swamiji is telling that knowledge is based upon experience. All knowledge is based upon experience. Now what we call exact sciences, physical sciences for example, they believe in gross experience, and gross experience is available to everybody, though we have not had that experience. But we quickly believe anything science tells us because, it is based upon so and so's gross experience, we can also have it. That becomes the idea. Now in the field of religion, Swamiji says yes or no. That means the way religion is preached, it does not seem to be based upon experience. It seems to be based upon faith, belief. And that is why people do not like it, those with scientific mind. But when we go to the root of it, we find it is also based upon experience. The experience therein is the subtle experience. It is also universal. Everybody can have it, provided they undergo the processes for it. For example, if you have to study astronomy, you must take a telescope, look at the sky, concentrate your power there. In chemistry, you have to mix things and see the results. So every science has its method. So the science of religion or the science of the subtler phenomena of the world has its methods to reach that. And so Raj Yoga will teach us how to get the subtler perceptions. And basing upon that, we shall see that everything which any religion is teaching is actually based upon experience. And so long as we do not know that, quarrel is bound to happen. I think it is like this, you think like that, there will be quarrel. But if there is an experience, then it will be universal. That is the way Swamiji is putting in the introduction. So, inferential knowledge is based upon perception, then inference. So we read up to this second para. Nevertheless, last line of the second para. Nevertheless, there is a basis of universal belief in religion governing all the different theories and all the varying ideas of different sects in different countries or everywhere. Going to their basis, we find that they also are based upon universal experience. Now, Swamiji has stated this. Now he is explaining this very point, elaborately. In the first place, if you analyze all the various religions of the world, you will find that these are divided into two classes. Those with a book and those without a book. What is a book? Record of experiences. That is the book. Now some people have not written down their records. So after some time they collapse. There is nothing to refer to. They will say tradition. His Guru, his Guru, his Guru. We cannot go back eternally. Those with a book are the strongest and have the largest number of followers. Those without books have mostly died out, and the few new ones have very small followings. What happens? Some Mahatma Baba gets some subtle experience and he forms his own sect. And when that Mahatma dies, there is nothing left. Generally, you will find this difference. With a book, they have a continuity of followers. Those without a book die out in 2 or 3 generations at the most. Yet in all of them, Swamiji is taking both of them, yet in all of them we find one consensus of opinion, consensus means majority, or everybody is agreeing to some extent. That is called consensus. Consensus of opinion, that consensus. Sensus means I also feel, you also feel. Con means center, concentric. That the truths they teach are the results of the experiences of particular person. The Christian, let's take an example. The Christian asks you to believe in his religion, to believe in Christ, and to believe in Him as the incarnation of God. To believe in a God, in a soul, and in a better state of that soul. In few words, Swamiji has described Christian. Better state of that soul means you will go to heaven eternally. If you do not follow the command of God, you will go to hell eternally. And God's representative is Jesus. So believe in God, believe in Jesus, and believe in a better state of the soul. And we have to believe in a soul, that we are not the body. Then only this future thing comes. If I ask him for reason, he says he believes in them. But if you go to the fountainhead of Christianity, how it started, you will find that it is based upon experience. Christ said he saw God. The disciples said they felt God, because it is not by eyes you can see, it is sukshma, subtler, so different expressions come. And so forth. So forth means the tradition there. Similarly in Buddhism, it is Buddha's experience. He experienced certain truths, saw them in a direct experience. Came in contact, how beautiful is, because it is super sensuous, Swamiji using different words to show the directness. Experienced, saw, came in contact with them and preached them to the world. So with the Hindus, in their books, the writers who are called rishis or sages, English term, declare they experience certain truths and these they preach. Thus it is clear that all the religions of the world have been built upon that one universal and adamantine foundation of all our knowledge, direct experience. But the teachers all saw God, they all saw their own souls, they saw their future, they saw their eternity, and what they saw they preached. Now he is summing up all religions in these words. Only there is this difference, that by most of these religions, especially in modern times, a peculiar claim is made, namely that these experiences are impossible at the present day. In our reading of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we found this again and again. Even today, same thing is there. Old rishis saw this, even today you can see that. Everywhere it is stated. In so many mantras we got this statement. This was the experience of the previous rishis. Even today, those who do like this will get this. But that is missing in some religions. That these experiences are impossible at the present day. They were only possible with a few men who were the first founders of the religion that subsequently bore their name. In India, our religion does not bear anybody's name. Our rishis are discoverers. They reiterate the truths. Truths are eternal. At the present time, these experiences have become obsolete. Obsolete, you understand, no? Out of date. And therefore, we have now to take religion on belief. This I entirely deny. Entirely. Swami says, I don't want such a religion. Because my reason tells it, if a man has experience, other man also can. If he follows the proper method, then you can add. If there has been one experience in this world, in any particular branch of knowledge, it absolutely follows that that experience has been possible millions of times before and will be repeated eternally. That means time will have no effect. Before, after, if a man can experience something, he can always experience that thing. The requirement is that he should be a man and he should follow the process. Uniformity is the rigorous law of nature. What once happened can happen always. The teachers of the science of yoga therefore declare that religion is not only based upon the experience of ancient times, but that no man, important point, a very important point Swamiji is making. That unless you experience, you have no religion. Not only that everybody can, unless he gets experience, he has no religion. Swamiji has stressed this point everywhere. But that no man can be religious until he has the same perceptions himself. Yoga is a science which teaches us how to get this perception. Science means a methodical, studied, systematic knowledge. It shows like this you can do, you can perceive. It is not much use to talk about religion until one has felt it, experienced it. Why is there so much disturbance, so much fighting and quarreling in the name of God? There has been more bloodshed in the name of God than for any other cause. Because people never went to the fountainhead. They were content only to give a mental assent to the customs of their forefathers. Religion is left like that. No experience, no attempt at experience. Doctrines and dogmas also are forgotten. What my father did is standard for me. What is the custom in a village is the religion there. And I accept that. And wanted others to do the same. A peculiar example is given, you know. In a village, there was a ashrama or kutia, whatever you call it. So some visitors went there. Then at the time of meditation in the evening, the disciples were searching for a cat. All were busy in searching for the cat. They got one cat somewhere. They tied it to the gate of the ashrama and then sat for meditation. So the villagers were surprised. What is the connection between the cat and meditation? They asked them. They could not explain. It is our tradition. Then in the village there were some old people. They told, a sadhu came here and built a hut. People helped him to make a kutia. Now mice and other things troubled him. A cat came from somewhere and he was affectionate to the cat because that was very helpful. Now cat does not understand meditation. So when the Swami used to sit for meditation, the cat would go and sit in his lap because he is now quietly sitting. Now he loved the cat, but at the time of meditation he does not want it. So he would ask his disciple, anybody or himself, tie the cat there. That became the tradition. People forgot the source even. Not to tie. They search for a cat and tie it at the gate. Now meditate. So Lokachara becomes to this extent. They were content only to give a mental assent to the customs of their forefathers and wanted others to do the same. What right has a man to say he has a soul if he does not feel it? What is the proof that there is a soul? I experienced it. That can be the only proof. Without that, how can you say? Or that there is a God if he does not see him? People do not believe in this, what you call it, Thakur Swamiji's Yuga, that God can be seen. If there is a God, we must see him. If there is a soul, we must perceive it. Otherwise, it is better not to believe. It is better to be an outspoken atheist than a hypocrite. So he calls all of us hypocrites unless we experience. The modern idea, on the other hand, on one hand, with the learned, is that religion and metaphysics and all search after a supreme being are futile. So the ignorant followers of religion, they just follow. The modern educated say it is useless. And there is one more section, with the semi-educated. This is a current idea. The idea seems to be that these things really have no basis. Their only value consists in the fact that they furnish strong motive power for doing good to the world. You know this? Semi. What is the proof of religion? There is no proof. But those who follow religion are good people. Religion helps to make people good. That is the utility. Swamiji is going deep. You ask the vast number of devotees, inside, outside, everywhere. Those who go to temple, they are better than those who do not go to temple. Swamiji is analytical mind. If men believe in a God, they may become good and moral, and so make good citizens. We cannot blame them for holding such ideas, seeing that all the teaching these men get is simply to believe in an eternal rigmarole of words without any substance behind them. They are asked to live upon words. Can they do it? If they could, I should not have the least regard for human nature. Swamiji's words are strong. If a man can live believing in certain words, I can't call him a man. Or I can't give any honor to humanity. That is not the nature of human beings. Man wants truth, real man, sadhak. Wants to experience the truth for himself. When he has grasped it, realized it, felt it within his heart of hearts, then alone declare the Vedas would all doubts vanish. Now in the yoga system, there is not much mention of Vedas. Because Swamiji is a thoroughbred Vedantist, that comes every time. Would all doubts vanish, all darkness be scattered, and all crookedness be made straight. From where Swamiji has taken this? Mundaku Vidyate hridaya granthi, छिद्यन्ते सर्व संशया, हीयन्ते तस्य कर्माणि, तस्मिन् दृष्टे परावरे. That is Mundaku. Then he comes to Shata Shatarupani. Ye children of immortality, you understand? Children means what do you like to call? Ansha, reflections of God. Ye children of immortality, even those who live in the highest sphere, the way is found. There is a way out of all this darkness, and that is why perceiving Him who is beyond all darkness, there is no other way. You know this? Swamiji's famous shloka. In Parliament of Religions also is. Shrunvantu Vishwe Amritasya Pruta. Aye Dhamani Divya Nitasya. Vedahametam Purusham Man Puranam. Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parasta. Veda, no other way. Nanya Pantha Vidyate Ayanaya. This is not dogmatism. Anatomy of perfection. We are all living in Maya. There is a person beyond Maya. If you can go there, we will be beyond Maya. Okay? There is no other way. So this Swamiji is Vedanta. Now he brings Raja Yoga. Swamiji is Raja Yoga we are studying. The science of Raja Yoga proposes to put before humanity a practical and scientifically worked out method of reaching this truth. They don't believe in such a soul at all. Anyway, now how to start. This sentence, new para is there, though it is not marked in the book, but a new thought from here. In the first place, every science must have its own method of investigation. That I was referring previously. According to the science, the method will be different. In physics, you don't combine things, because you are studying energy. In chemistry, you are studying matter. So combining. Astronomy stars. If you want to become an astronomer and sit down and cry astronomy, it will never come to you. The same with chemistry. A certain method must be followed. You must go to a laboratory, take different substances, mix them up, compound them, experiment with them, and out of that will come a knowledge of chemistry. I remember here my college entry. I told my father, I want to study science and I want to study Sanskrit also. What should I do? In our college at that time such a combination was not available. He said, if you want to study Sanskrit, you can go to any big acharya and study Sanskrit. If you want to study science, this is what he told. Unless you burn your hands by doing experiments, you cannot study science. So I joined science. If you want to be an astronomer, you must go to an observatory, take a telescope, study the stars and planets, and then you will become an astronomer. Each science, example is given, known examples, each science must have its own methods. I could preach you thousands of sermons, but they would not make you religious until you practice them. So in this introduction, Swamiji is again and again stating practice. The methods are given, you have to practice. These are the truths of the sages of all countries, of all ages, of men pure and unselfish, who had no motive but to do good to the world. They all declare that they have found some truth higher than what the senses can bring to, very subtler truths. And they invite verification. You can do like this and verify. They ask us to take up the method and practice honestly. And then if we do not find this higher truth, we will have the right to say there is no truth in the claim. But before we have done that, we are not rational in denying the truth of their assertion. We challenge them. They say these are our methods. Those who want us to believe without methods, we don't believe. But those who are giving us the methods, we have to follow it. And if you do not get result, then you have to say your thing is wrong, unless you have done that. So we must work faithfully, sincerely, using the prescribed methods, and light will come. Light means knowledge. In acquiring knowledge, we make use of generalization. You understand? If some isolated incident happens, we are not satisfied. When you find a group for that, then you are satisfied. That is knowledge. And generalization is based upon observation. We first observe facts, then generalize, and then draw conclusions or principles. Beautiful analysis. The knowledge of the mind, of the internal nature of man, of thought, can never be had until we have first the power of observing the facts that are going on with you. This is totally missing from any Western concept. Their psychology is behavioral psychology. But here we want to see the mind and then decide. It is comparatively easy, now the difference between religion and science. It is comparatively easy to observe facts in the external world. For many instruments have been invented for that purpose. But in the internal world, we have no instrument to help us. You understand? Yet we know we must observe in order to have a real science. Without a proper analysis, any science will be hopeless, mere theorizing. And that is why all the psychologists have been quarreling among themselves in the beginning of time, except those few who found out the means of observation. They all agree. But otherwise, my theory, your theory, so many theories. The science of Rajoga in the first place proposes to give us such a means of observing the internal states. It teaches us how to observe the internal states. Method is given. The instrument is the mind itself. The power of attention, when properly guided and directed toward the internal world, will analyze the mind and illumine facts for us. Illumine will get the real knowledge. The powers of the mind are like rays of light dissipated. When we externalize, they get scattered. When they are concentrated, they illuminate. Understand? Rajoga will first teach concentration. We are going to observe internal science. But before that, we must practice concentration. Otherwise, if the mind is scattered, it cannot go inside, it cannot observe. So steps are these. The powers of the mind are like rays of light dissipated. When they are concentrated, they illumine. This is our only means of knowledge. Now Swamiji is shifting to concentration. Whether in chemistry or physics or astronomy or anything, concentration is the method to get knowledge. Now in the internal world also, concentration is the method to get knowledge. This is our only means of knowledge. Everyone is using it, both in the external and the internal world. But for the psychologist, the same minute observation has to be directed to the internal world. We are all using concentration to get the external knowledge, but to inside it is difficult. Which the scientific man directs to the external, and this requires a great deal of practice. Understand is fine. To begin Raj Yoga, we must first learn how to concentrate. And it requires a great amount of practice to concentrate. Then directing inside will come. From our childhood upwards, we have been taught only to pay attention to the things external, but never to things internal. Hence, most of us have nearly lost the faculty of observing the internal mechanism. A power not used becomes lost. In Darwin's evolution, it is called atavism. Example, the cow or animals move their ears freely. We cannot. Because we have hands. For removing flies and all that, they simply move their ears. We have our hands, so we do not use them. So the power is gone. But whatever is gone can be cultivated, brought back. So we have nearly lost the faculty of observing the internal mechanism. To turn the mind, as it were, inside, stop it from going outside, and then to concentrate all its powers and throw them upon the mind itself, in order that it may know its own nature, analyze itself, is very hard work. He is warning in the beginning, it's not a light thing. Yet that is the only way to anything which will be a scientific approach to the subject. Without that, there cannot be science. Now when difficulty comes, we will ask, why should we do it? What is the use of such knowledge? In the first place, two different answers Swamiji is giving. In the first place, knowledge itself is the highest reward of knowledge. And an ignorant man and a knowing man, how much difference it creates. So that is the first result. You will get better knowledge. And secondly, there is also utility in it. Utility means how much happiness it can add. That is called utility. So what is the utility of this science? It will remove all our misery. That is the utility. Now this is a particular thing. Let's take all the orthodox Indian systems of philosophy. In the Nyaya and Vaisheshika, in the state of freedom, soul will have no consciousness. No consciousness. It will be like a matter substance, no feeling. Because the misery we don't want. Neither knowledge nor happiness. That is the goal prescribed by Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Now Sankhya and Yoga, they tell us misery can be removed. They do not talk of happiness. Another big difference between Vedanta and these systems I am telling you. both Mimamsa and Vedanta. Mimamsa will send us to heaven, happiness. And Vedanta will give us bliss, our own happiness. Sankhya and Yoga will tell consciousness will be there and you will have no misery. That's all. Nowhere in the system of Sankhya or Yoga happiness is mentioned. There is a big difference. So Swamiji said that the common element, there is also utility in it. It will take away all our misery. When by analyzing his own mind, man comes face to face as it were means face to face is a expression. Direct experience is what is meant. Man comes face to face as it were with something which is never destroyed. That means when we know that our Atman is never destroyed, half our misery will be gone. We are afraid of death always. Something which is by its own nature eternally pure and perfect, he will no more be miserable, no more unhappy. So all the impurity and unhappiness is in the mind, and we are beyond the mind. So in this, beyond the mind is found out, there is no impurity, there is no misery. All misery comes from fear, from unsatisfied desire, two different things. Fear means what we have will be lost, that is fear. And we have desire, we are not getting it. These are the two sources of misery. Man will find that he never dies, and then he will have no more fear of death. If I am not going to die, why should be afraid of death? Death is of the body, I will live forever. When he knows that he is perfect, another point, perfect as God, he will have no more desires, vain desires. Vain means they are never satisfied, so they are called vain desires. And both these causes being absent, there will be no more misery. That means no fear of death, no want of something. There will be perfect bliss even while in this body. This is Vedanta. I told you, this is not idea found in Sankhya or Yoga. But Swamiji is Rajayoga. So there will be perfect bliss even while in this body. It is Jivan Mukti of Vedanta. There is only one method by which to attain this knowledge, which is called concentration. Swamiji comes back to concentration now. He has shown knowledge is the goal by which this misery will be removed. Now the method is concentration. The chemist in his laboratory concentrates all the energies of a mind into one focus and throws them upon the materials he is analyzing, and so finds out their secrets. The astronomer concentrates all the energies of his mind and projects them through his telescope upon the sky, and the stars, the sun and the moon give up their secrets to him. The more I can concentrate my thoughts on, he is given a practical example. The more I can concentrate my thoughts on the matter on which I am talking to you, the more light I can throw upon you. You are listening to me, and the more you concentrate your thoughts, the more clearly you will grasp what I have to say. Difference between two people listening to the same lecture, one who can concentrate understands more. How has all the knowledge in the world been gained? But by the concentration of the powers of the mind. The world is ready to give up its secrets if you only know how to knock, how to give it the necessary blow. The strength and force of the blow come through concentration. There is no limit to the power of the human mind. The more concentrated it is, the more power is brought to bear on one point. That is the secret. Now in the previous days, we hear of so many astras, Parajanya Astra and Agni Astra, and we don't believe now. And we atom bombs and hydrogen bombs, all external. Simply by concentrating the powers of the mind, they could make one arrow making so many flames in the battlefield. Rain would come, wind will come, one arrow, but by the power of the mind. Well, lost it now. In this modern age, Swamiji is telling, the more we are discovering external aids, like your cell phones and this and that, the more we are losing the internal concentration. Our habit, very subtle knowledge of this instrument, that instrument, the subtler powers of the mind become less. That is the difference between the old age and new age. It is easier to concentrate the mind on external things. The mind naturally goes outwards, but not so in the case of religion or psychology or metaphysics, where the subject and the object are one. That means studying instrument is mind, and what is to be studied is the mind. The object is internal, the mind itself is the object, and it is necessary to study the mind itself. Mind studying mind, we know that there is the power of the mind called reflection. Developed or undeveloped, the power is there. I am talking to you, at the same time I am standing aside as it were, a second person, and knowing and hearing what I am talking. Two things, knowing and hearing. You understand this point? Important Vedantic point. I am doing something. I know I am doing something. Understood? And that is not mind, that is my consciousness. But when I do something, I observe also how I am doing. And if I am making mistake, I can correct it next time. Those who blindly do without observing, they do not improve. So, Swami is using two words. When we do something, we are knowing and we are observing. This power we have. A quiet mind, the more peaceful mind is more observing. Excited mind does not observe. I am talking to you. At the same time, I am standing aside, as it were, a second person, and knowing and hearing what I am talking. What I am talking, I am also hearing. You work and think at the same time. While a portion of your mind stands by and sees what you are thinking. You are thinking, and what you are thinking, that you are observing. You are doing something, you are observing. You are thinking, you are observing. The powers of the mind should be concentrated and turned back upon itself, and at the darkest places reveal their secret before the penetrating rays of the sun. So will this concentrated mind penetrate its own innermost secret. Thus will we come to the basis of belief, the real genuine religion. Beautiful introduction. We will pursue for ourselves whether we are souls, whether life is of 5 minutes or of eternity, whether there is a God in the universe or none. That is also a Vedantic view, God. It will all be revealed to us. This is what Raja Yoga proposes to teach. This is the introduction. The goal of all its teachings is how to concentrate the mind, then how to discover the innermost races of our own mind, then how to generalize their content, and from our own form, our own conclusions from them. Deeper we go, make generalization, again deeper we go, make more generalization. In this way, the knowledge will become subtler and subtler. It therefore never asks the question what our religion is. Whatever religion is means the external form of religion. Whether you believe in Christ or whether it is not the matter. Whether we have developed concentration, whether we have developed reflection, that we have to do. Whether you are deist or atheist, deist means believing in God. Atheist means not believing in God. Whether Christians, Jews or Buddhists, we are human beings, that is sufficient. All the powers are there if used. Every human being has the right and the power to seek for religion. Every human being has the right to ask the reason why and to have his questions answered by himself if you only take the trouble. Why we can ask. But ourselves we can concentrate and find out why. So far then we see that in the study of Raja Yoga, no faith or belief is necessary without practice. Believe nothing until you find it out for yourself. That is what it teaches us. Truth requires no prop to make it stand. Prop means a stand. Do you mean to say that the facts of our awakened state require any dreams or imaginings to prove them? Direct perception. Certainly not. The study of Raja Yoga takes a long time and constant practice. A part of this practice is physical. Pranayama and all that, sitting. But in the main it is mental. As we proceed, we shall find how intimately the mind is connected with the body. If you believe that the mind is simply a finer part of the body and that mind acts upon the body, then it stands to reason that the body must react upon the mind. If the body is sick, the mind becomes sick also. If the body is healthy, the mind remains healthy and strong. When one is angry, the mind becomes disturbed. Similarly, when the mind is disturbed, the body also becomes disturbed. A relation, mutual relation. With the majority of mankind, the mind is Mind is under the influence of the body. The mind is greatly under the control of the body. Their mind being very little developed. When the mind is developed, it controls the body. If the mind is not developed, body controls the mind. The vast mass of humanity is very little removed from the animals. You understand? We have not grown much from the animals. Not only so, but in many instances, the power of control in them is little higher than that of the lower animals. Any animal is divided the lower animals. And our concentration is not even that much. We have very little command of our minds. Therefore, to bring that command about, to get that control over body and mind, we must take certain physical help. That is why physical, that's how it is. When the body is sufficiently controlled, we can attempt the manipulation of the mind. Manipulation means using it properly. By manipulating the mind, we shall be able to bring it under our control, make it work as we like, and compel it to concentrate its power as we desire. You know? Okay. Now, we'll just see a little more. Some will explain in introduction, then we'll go to Raja Yoga proper. Om Paratatve Sadalino Ramakrishna Samagyaya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.